Welcome to this episode of the Conscious Business Coffee Break, where we take a few moments to explore what's happening in the conscious business movement, expand awareness, and encourage your efforts in conscious business. Greetings, everyone. I'm Stephen Donaco of the Conscious Business Enterprise, a division of Humanities team. And today, I'm going to be talking about the foundations of conscious business practice. So this topic falls into the areas of expanding your awareness and encouraging your efforts in conscious business. And what I wanted to do is talk about the different P's in business. So in the old paradigm of business, we're very familiar with profit. And then in conscious business, we talk about the other P's, which include regard for people, the planet, and then the awareness of presence. So I wanted to have a deeper discussion about these things in the coffee break today and just reflect on them a bit more deeply. So first, profit. And as I've mentioned, profit has been the sole object in the old paradigm of business. And profit, of course, is required for business to survive, even to thrive. So it naturally follows that in a material world, that this focus on profit makes sense. So just to approach it for a moment without judgment at all. And really what our issue is an obsession, even an addiction to profit. And the cost of being obsessed with profit has been the detriment of joy, frankly, and all the things that bring joy, including life itself. Now, I always find it interesting when I meditate on a certain word or idea to just look it up in the dictionary. And this is a practice that you can try just to give you a different level of insight about a word or a phrase. So I looked up profit in the dictionary, and it's very amazing to me because the Middle English derivation is that profit means benefit. And in Latin, profit means progress or to advance. And if you take the two syllables of profit, pro means on behalf of, and then fit is derived from a word that means to do. So to do on behalf of. So it's sheds a different light on the meaning of the word when you look at it that way, because historically, profit didn't mean anything about making money in terms of the meaning of the word itself, but it was really to be doing things on behalf of. So the spirit of profit has a greater and a deeper meaning than what it's really become in business. So if we can return to that original definition and just meditate on it, our whole energy and the whole vibration of profit, we can experience much differently. So then moving on to people. And here, I think about the golden rule, to do to others what you would have done to you, to treat others as you would like to be treated, to regard others with respect as you would like to be respected. So from the perspective of running a business, of being in a community of people that work together, to regard a group of coworkers as friends. So not just coworkers or not just colleagues, but if they're really friends, and we have that kind of relationship with them, our relationship to those people will be transformed. So that's one way that we can deepen our awareness of what it means to be in collaboration with people in business. Social responsibility. So as a business, how do we show up in the social structure, and how do we support that? Community responsibility and being a good citizen. So companies don't exist in silos. They are based somewhere. They have a base of operations. They contribute to local economies. The people who work for them contribute to local economies and so forth. So, and depending on the size of the business, it will have the ripple of its impacts in the community is far greater than what it's providing with its products and services. So a question to ask yourself, if you're a business owner, or if you have a influential position in a business, is that how is our business being a good citizen in the community? And again, it goes back to this golden rule. How would I want to be treated? And can I have that same awareness and extend that same desire out into the world, into the community where my business is based? Employee treatment. How is the business respecting, treating, regarding the contributions of the people who work for it? So, and I've mentioned it before on the program, the Gallup organization for 30 years has done research around this, how deeply engaged are people in their jobs. And those numbers have been lopsided for a long time. And worldwide, 80% of people or more are not engaged in their jobs. And a lot of it has to do with how people are treated at work. So again, if we can regard our coworkers, the people that we manage, if we happen to be in positions of management and leadership, we regard them as fellow human beings and friends, we're going to treat them a lot differently than if they're just simply human, quote unquote, resources. So for leaders, having self-awareness of your power, to be poised in that power and not to default to that power as a means of being a tyrant, but using that power for benevolence, being inclusive as a leader and understanding that the collective wisdom of a group is far greater than any individual's wisdom, to practice power with instead of power over others. And all of this takes leading from a center of love, which is a courageous thing to do in today's world, and not leading from a center of fear and ego, which are all too easy to do. But if we really meditate on what it means to treat people, and if we follow that classic golden rule, we can much more easily lead from a center of love versus from fear and ego. And then we have P for planet. Now, Earth is our home, of course. And more profoundly, as souls, as embodied spirits, we are of the earth, not separate from it. And this has been one of the great errors of humanity, is somehow we feel that the environment is something out there, that nature is something out there. And really, truly, we are of nature. We're part of nature. We're of nature. We are of the ecosystem of the earth as human beings. We come from the earth and we literally go back to it. All of the physical elements that make up these vessels we call bodies are of the earth, period. And as conscious beings, so as beings that have the embodied as embodied spirits, as beings that can contemplate, that can consider the meaning of our own existence, we've really been given a gift. And our divine charter is to have stewardship of the earth and not domination over it. So we do the latter. We have the domination to our own detriment and the detriment of our race and the human species. So it's essential that we take care of Earth in order so that we have some place to continue to do business. Because if the Earth's not here, we have no base of business at all. And then presence, the next P. And in conscious business, we speak about presence in the Conscious Business Declaration, and we can regard presence as the ever-expanding awareness that we are interrelated, interconnected, interdependent. And though we might be separately embodied in these vessels we call bodies, everything that we do, and even everything that we think, has an impact on others. So presence is awareness of a power greater than ourselves, operating as ourselves. And presence is also how we choose to show up. So we choose our level of presence in business, for instance. We also choose how we show up in our relationships with our loved ones and our families, how we show up in our communities. So presence, just think of it as this ever expanding awareness of being interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent, and use that and meditate on that as a basis for how you are going to show up in your business as a conscious business person. And then let me add a couple of other P's that we typically don't talk about in the context of the declaration, but they're important nevertheless. And one of the P's is for purpose. So if we're in balance across the aspects of profit, people, planet, and presence, purpose will be self-evident. Your purpose will reveal itself to you as you process the experiences of your life. So as you organically discover your talents and the things that attract you, that's how purpose will reveal itself to you. And that presence will provide you with the circumstances and the challenges that will call forth your purpose. So really our role then is to pay attention and not become fixated on trying to figure out what our purpose is. There are a lot of programs that will help you to find your purpose and to figure out what your purpose is. And I would say that really it's being present to yourself and being in touch with the presence that is greater than yourself, that when we meditate on that and just pay attention to the process of our lives, purpose will call us. And it's not so much about us going out and finding it. So we don't come to our purpose through logic. It's always a matter of the heart, to allow for your heart to take the lead, and really to lead yourself from a center of love instead of leading yourself from the logic of the mind. Because if we do it that way, we might come up with a purpose, but it may not be in alignment with our heart. And really, purpose truly is about following our hearts and not our heads. And then the last P that I'll talk about is pleasure. And this really comes down to simply enjoy what you do and take the time to step away from your work for enjoyment. Make time to play every day in some way. And this doesn't mean you have to go out and do something really complicated or time consuming. It could just be as simple as taking a walk around the block. And for myself, when I used to work in the middle of downtown Chicago in a large office building, I would make it a point every day, at least once a day, to literally get outside, get out of the building and take a walk around the block or a walk around a couple of blocks. And it was a form of play. It was a form of decompression. It was an opportunity to get outside. And it does bring pleasure to do that, to just change your environment. And then in a greater sense, that pleasure can be when you do take a vacation, when you're able to get away for a longer period of time from your work, when you're able to do certain pursuits that bring you joy, like going on a long bike ride, or it could be playing a round of golf, or it could be getting out in nature and hiking, any number of those kinds of things. But pleasure is so important in our lives, and we, in the old context, the old paradigm of business, we tend to de-emphasize the importance of pleasure. And the chronic absence of pleasure is a sign for us to reevaluate what's going on in our lives. So if you're not feeling like you're getting pleasure out of life, reevaluate what's happening. Because we are here to have life and to have it abundantly, which means simply to enjoy life. And it's also important as conscious business people, especially if we're in a leadership position, to give others the space for their pleasure too. So it's not just enough for us to play, to have time to play, to feel pleasure, but to give others the space so that they can pursue those things too. Because we all come together as a community of business people and not just as individual professionals. So regard pleasure as a healer. And if you feel somewhat off, if you don't feel right, if you don't feel well, there are two things that will help you: either to rest or to play. And if you do one or either of those as you feel intuitively led, your healing will be quickened. So to conclude all of this today, I'm going to say with other aspects pursuits and practices of life, balance helps us to keep everything in perspective. And balance provides a safeguard that prevents the overindulgence of any pursuit from becoming harmful. And an obsession with one thing at the expense of all others eliminates joy. So, for instance, like I said at the beginning, if we're obsessed with profit at the expense of all else, our joy is eliminated. And the same would hold true for something like pleasure. If we're obsessed solely with pleasure at the expense of everything else, eventually our joy will be reduced and eliminated, and we will no longer be in balance. So, as conscious business people, as conscious human beings, let us practice from a center of love and balance all of those aspects of our lives so that we do live and we flourish abundantly. So with that, I'll leave you there to meditate on the greater purposes of business and our lives. So thank you for joining me, everyone, today. I appreciate everyone who watched in live. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Conscious Business Coffee Break. We will see you again next week on Wednesday, 9 a.m. U.S. Central Time for another edition. And in the meantime, have a blessed, prosperous, and flourishing weekend. Thanks, everyone.